Hey, welcome to yet another day on working on our Django restaurant menu app. So far we built this. So that's the homepage, and to build the homepage we created modules, views and HTML templates. Today we're gonna complete this app by working on the admin interface. So we're gonna build an admin interface and then add some data there, some meals, and then we're gonna get those data from the database to the front end here. So let's do all that in the next videos. I'll see you in the next one. Hey, currently our app shows some dummy data. So we want to show some actual data which are coming from the database. But before we do that, we want to create an admin interface. And then as an admin, we can add some actual data. So to create an admin interface, you want to go to restaurant menu directory, and there you will find an admin.py file which Django has automatically generated, but this is almost empty. So we want to create a class now called menu item admin, which inherits from admin, so this name, dot model admin, capital M, capital A. Then here we want to mention some predefined variable names such as list display, the way we want the data to be displayed on the admin interface. So we want this to be displayed, we want to see the name and the status of the data. Name and status, these are in models.py. Actually it's meal, meal and status. So if the meal is available, you can use any of them, right? So meal, not name. We don't have a name field, so these are database fields. List filter, so filter by status. Each of them is a tuple. Make sure to have a comma here, otherwise Python will not read this as a tuple. And then search fields, how you want to search this. So that would be meal, and you want to search by meal and description. Description is also one of the fields. It's here. And then this class, let me make another line there. This class has to be registered with admin.site.register. You want to couple that class with the item class, which should be imported from .models import item. And then here you mention menu item admin. So basically this item model is coupled with this menu item admin. Now if you go to the site and you add a /admin here, this will take you to the login form, but we need to create an admin here to be able to log in. To create the admin, you need to go to your Django project in PyCharm, and you want to press Ctrl+C in the terminal to stop the project, and then you want to run python manage.py, making sure that venv is activated here. And then the command is create super user. So python manage.py, create super user, press enter, and this will ask you to enter the username. Let's keep it simple and say admin. Email address admin@admin.com, just a sample email address for the records, and then the password, I'll just write admin here as well. You'll not see anything when you type, so the password is hidden. So I typed in admin, now I'll press enter. I'll repeat the password admin, press enter again. If the password is too short, you'll get this question if you want to accept it or not. For simplicity, I'll just press Y to accept it. And then I can go in here and say admin, login. Oh, sorry, I didn't run the app. So you want to run the app again, python manage.py run server with a port name or not, whatever you prefer. So again, go to the URL and then /admin, admin, login, and you should see this. So we have these default tables, groups and users, and then we have the items table as well. So items comes from this models here, the class item. So that name is reflected in here. If you press on items and then you want to add a new item using that button or that button, so what you're doing here when you press that add item button is you are adding a new record to the items table, right? That record will have a meal such as pizza, a description such as dough and cheese. So this is like the ingredients, a price, let's say 9.9, a meal type. So this comes from this string here, meal type, inside models.py. So we have starters, we have salads. So we want to link one meal with a category of meal. So this would be a main dish. Author is the admin, this is the username we have just created. Status, so do you want to put it as unavailable or available? Let's put it available and press on save. So there we go, we have the pizza and the status available. So this is showing the meal and the status, because that's what we defined in admin.py, meal and the status. And then we can filter by status, so list filter status, you see here. You can filter those, and you can search here by meal and the description. So this here define how this will look like, the admin interface. Let's add one more item. Greek salad, tomatoes, cheese, onions perhaps, and let's set the price to 8.5. Meal is salads, author is the same. So you can have multiple authors, multiple cooks who can add meals. For that you need multiple users, so you can go here and create more users which can access the admin interface. And so it's good to keep each meal connected to a particular cook, so you know who added what. Let's make this unavailable, press on save, and there we go, Greek salad and pizza. Okay, I paused the recording and I added some more items just to have them here. So I do recommend you also add a few more items so that later on we can see these on the web page. Now, just before I close the video, I also wanted to show you that if you have a program such as DB Browser for SQLite, you can actually display that table. So you don't have to do this, but just to demonstrate you what we're doing here. So on app 18, so in my PyCharm project I have this db.sqlite3. That's the actual database which is populated with the items we just added. So you can also view those items in here. You go to browse and then you find that restaurant menu item table, and there we go, that's the data I've just added. Pizza, Greek salad, etc. There are other tables here as well, which are more like default tables which Django has created. But the table that contains the data is restaurant menu item. The name is automatically chosen by Django, so restaurant menu items, it reflects this app name, so the app name restaurant menu, followed by item, which is the name of the class here in models.py, but in lowercase letters. So app name followed by the model name. That's the name convention here. I'm closing that, and yeah, that's about creating the admin interface and adding some data to the tables through the admin interface. Now we're ready to display those data to the front end for our users. So let's do that in the next videos. Thanks. Hey, welcome back. When we visit the homepage of our app, for now, we see some dummy data here. So in this video, what we want to do is we want to display the actual data here, and the actual data are those which we entered in the admin interface. So when you go to the homepage /admin and you go to items, you see all the data here which we inserted in the previous video. So these data now have to be displayed for the users here on the user's side of things on the front end. So let's do that. Let's go to our project. And so we're working on the HTML templates, right? So let's go to index.html, which is the template that is rendered when the user visits the homepage this here. And currently we have some dummy data, some meals, ingredients. So this come from views.py, you see. This context variable contains a dictionary, so that dictionary has meals and ingredients as keys. So meals, ingredients. Now, instead of having those hard-coded data here, we want to start with an empty dictionary like this. And then we can add keys like so. So that would be equal to meal types, for example. Now, meal types is something we need to get from models.py, from this. So meal type is this variable, which is a tuple of tuples. It contains the meal categories because we want to start by displaying the categories. So for that, we need to import from .models import item meal type, right? So meal type without the S. That will create a key in the dictionary, and the value for that key will be this tuple with these values. And we return the context. So if we go to index here, and let me delete ingredients, and this will be meals, so it's the same, meals. Let me open this to the right here. So meals, and my app is running, so if I go to the homepage, refresh it, we're gonna see those meals now. So a tuple of tuples. But this is not the best representation. We want to show only these, so starters with a capital S, salads, this one, not this one, so not this one, but this one, not this one, but this one. Let's try to do that in the index.html. So we need to write a for loop here using this syntax. So this is Jinja 2 syntax. So you can say for meal in meals, and then you display the meal here. So that is a variable which will iterate over all these. Let's see how that changes things, but first we want to close that loop somewhere in here. So with curly brackets, percentage symbols, and then end for. Go to here, refresh. So now it's looking better, but if you want to keep only the second item of the tuple, then you need to do here .1, right? So the first one has an index of 0, the second item of each tuple has an index of 1. So in meal, you do meal.1, refresh, and then you have starters, salads, main dishes, and desserts. If you want to make this an H2, so if you want them bigger, you could do that, H2 here, refresh, and they look bigger. Now, next is we need to display here the actual meals. So under starters, we want to display all the database records which have meals that are in the category of starters. Because just to refresh your memory, if you go to admin and you go to items and you go, for example, to bean stew, we selected a category for bean stew, so main dishes here. So the meal type of bean stew, which you can also see in models, you see meal type is a database field, one of the fields of the item table actually. So this has choices from meal type, this tuple of tuples. So now we can apply a second for loop here and a conditional block as well. So you could say this symbol again, for m in item list. What is item list? Item list now comes from the item class in models.py. So our class is named item, and when you do item with lowercase letters followed by an underscore followed by list, this is like a special variable name. So Django is looking for this type of naming convention. So the name of the class in models.py followed by an underscore list. That will give you the list of database records. So you do for m in item list, and you want to close that somewhere in here. So let's do this first. And for, and then in here, so that's for this, and that is for that. So the inner for loop and the outer for loop. And inside here, you could do something like with double curly brackets. So this will contain a variable such as m.meal, and same goes in here, m.description. So meal and description are coming from models.py. Meal description, this one here. You can add more like m.price, etc. This m here is this one in here. You can also say for row in item list, and you could do here for row.meal, row.description. So I just changed this to row and I use row. Since this represents a database record, so one row in the table. Now, if we go to the home page and we refresh it, we'll not see anything new here. So these are not being displayed. The reason for that is because we haven't completed the get context data method here. You see, there's no item context being sent to the index.html page, right? So we do have the meals variable, which is this one here, but there's no item list yet. To do that, you need to change something. First, you need to give a parameter here, which is a special parameter. We have covered this before, and then the context has to be equal to super. So you call the parent class, which is list view, and then you access get context data using that parameter here as an argument. So basically we are getting some actual value, an existing dictionary from the list view class to get some default values already. So this will be a dictionary, and then we can add more keys to that dictionary. So instead of starting with an empty dictionary like this, we do this instead, right? Now save this and go to the page, refresh, and this time we're gonna see this. So we do have the data here. You see seafood pasta, that's the meal. so the name of the meal, followed by the description. You see, pasta, seafood, it's a bit of a mess. We can fix that. And one simple way to fix that would be to put these into paragraph tags, like this. Open and close that paragraph tag. Same for this other one. So like that. Let's go to the page, refresh, and now we see seafood pasta and the ingredients, so the description basically. Or you could also do H3 tags for the meal name to make it more clear. And it's gonna look like this. We can of course improve this further with Bootstrap, so that's something we're gonna do in the next videos. And you can also see now we have some duplicate data here. So for example, seafood pasta shows with starters, but then it also shows with salads, under salads, and again under main dishes. So that's because we haven't applied any conditionals here. It is possible to apply conditionals inside the index.html template. So besides for loops, we can also apply conditions to filter those data. Because currently what's happening actually is that we iterate over the meals, right? So for each meal, so for each record in the database table, I can show you that using DB browser for SQLite, just to visualize what's going on here. So if we go to browse the restaurant menu table, so what's happening here is that this loop here, the first loop, is going through each of these rows. So it goes through the first row, which is the pizza meal with its description and meal type and so on. And then for that loop, we are displaying the meal.1 value, which is the meal type, remember? So meals represents that tuple of tuples, this tuple of tuple, and so we display meal1 on the web page. But then while in this row we iterate again over the items list and we display all the meals again. And then we go to the second row. In the meals types, we display all those rows again and so on. So we're doing everything multiple times. We can do that again, as I said, using if conditionals. So let's do that in the next video. See you there. Hey, welcome back. In the previous video, we applied some for loops using Jinja syntax. Now let's learn how to apply if conditionals again inside HTML. Before that, I want to do some housekeeping here. I want to indent the inner blocks, the inner lines of this block. So for example, we have the opening for line, the closing for line, and it makes sense to have these indented. So select them and press tab to indent. Again, I would like to indent these. So the inner for loop from here to here, indent it again. So this makes the code more readable. Same for this, like that. And also this last one. So there's a sort of a hierarchy now. And let's start with if conditionals. Why do we need to apply if conditionals here? Well, because we need to display only those meals which belong to their appropriate category. For example, is seafood pasta a starter? Is bean stew a starter? No, I don't think so. So bean stew has to be displayed only when we're looping over the main dishes categories. So when we do for meal in meals, then down here we say also that if actually this has to go under this, we want to check if row.meal type, so row represents a database table. That means we're accessing the meal type, which could be salad, starters, etc. So we're here. If that is equal to meal.0, then we display the meal and the description. So this is checking that the current meal, like pasta or bean stew, if that meal has a type, the current category that is being iterated in the meal types, right? We have the meal types. So if the current meal is that category, then we display these. Now let's close that if conditional block and then see on the web page what is displayed. To close that if conditional, we use basically the same style as the AND for, but we do AND if this time. So with that, you can refresh the page, and this time we're gonna see no duplicate data. So for example, seafood pasta belongs to starters. Salads, we have Greek salad. Main dishes, we have bean stew, corn tortilla, pizza, and panna cotta under desserts. So that's how you use AND if. And let me delete this line, and perhaps we want to indent this under the for loop, so the if conditional block is nested under the inner for loop, that loop. I would prefer to have this here actually in the same level with H3, it makes more sense. So that was how to use the if conditional block, but now I also want to show you how to use the if else conditional block, because you know, on the website we need to apply a strike through font through some of these meals. So for meals which are not available, for example, panna cotta is unavailable, is set as unavailable from the cooks, then we want to show that with that strike through font here. And to do that, we need if else in the code in index.html. So that's row.meal and that's row.description. So row.meal is, for example, this, and row.description is this. Same for pizza, row.meal, row.description. So let's try to strike through this line. So for that we say if row.status is equal to 0. Why row.status? Well, because in modals.py we have the status field which can have zeros or ones. So when the cook sets the status as unavailable in the database, so in the table here, status, the status column, you see it is either 0 or 1. So for panna cotta, which is this row here, that's panna cotta, status is equal to 0, so that means panna cotta is unavailable. That's exactly what we're checking in here, right? So if status is 0, we want to apply a strike through formatting, also known as the del tag. So delete, an opening tag and also a closing delete tag. So just inside the h3 tags of the row.meal variable. And let's check the website. Let's refresh. Oh, we forgot to close the if conditional. So we open it here. We need to close it in here. I'll just actually duplicate these and if and indent them here. Delete this empty line. So the new if conditional block starts here and it ends here, right? So let's refresh again the page. So we do see some formatting in here for Greek salad and panna cotta. However, something else has happened. Some of the meals have disappeared. For example, we had as starters, we had pasta. Right, it's not here anymore because that's what we're doing here. We're saying that if the status is 0, then create these elements, right? Otherwise, these will not be created. So if you want to create the elements, if you want to show something on the web page here for the other meals, then you want to apply an else conditional as well. And you do that before you close the end if conditional block. So else is basically part of the if conditional block. It's an optional part. So you would say else, and here you do want to display whatever you want to display. So in this case, it would be these two, but without the deal tags. So like that. Yeah, that should do it. Let's refresh. So here we go. We have starters, seafood pasta with its ingredients, so the description, salads, we have Greek salad with its descriptions. So Greek salad has this strike-through format, which means it is unavailable. So with that, we have completed this video. So that's how you can apply an if-else conditional block. Let's do some housekeeping. So I would like to indent these in here and these also under else, so the code is more readable. Next, what we want to do is we want to turn these meals, so seafood pasta, Greek salad, bean stew, we want to turn these into links so that the user can click any of them and then they will be brought to a web page where they can see some extra information for each of these meals. So let's do that in the next video. I'll see you there. Hey, in this video you learn how to transform the meals, so seafood pasta, Greek salad, bean stew, into links. When the user clicks any of these links, they will be brought to the corresponding page of each meal where they can see the ingredients or more information if you want to add more info. Let's do that. Let's go to index.html, which corresponds to this. And so this is the meal and that's the description. So meal, description. We want to turn the meal into a link. To do that, in HTML, you use the a tag. Like that. So open and close it. Just like that. So opening a tag, closing a tag. And then inside the opening a tag, you need to add an href property which will be equal to the URL where you want the user to go when they click that link. For now, let's just do something like https example.com. Just an example. Refresh the page and you will see that Greek salad and panna cotta have been updated to links. We can do the same for the other ones, which is under the else condition. So that was for those unavailable items. They can have links as well. So let's do that for this. A tag here, closing a tag here as well. Let's select it and indent it. So somewhere here. Let's close that. Refresh again. So all the meals now have links, but if you click them, they will take you to example.com, so which is a website, and that's the link we defined here. But of course, that's not what we want. We want to have a local link of our own web app. So that would be a relative link. And we should use Jinja syntax here again. So you should keep the quotes, but inside the quotes, you enter curly brackets followed by 2 percentage symbols. And then you say URL, which is a keyword, single quotes, and inside the single quotes, you want to define the name of the URL. What is the name of the URL? Well, if you go to the urls.py file under restaurant menu, so under restaurant menu, not under my site, under restaurant menu, URLs, in here we have a URL already, so that's the URL and its name is home. Now we want to add another URL here. So to do that, you need to add a comma here because this is a list of different items. So that's the first item, a comma, press enter, path to add another item. So that would be another URL, right? And here is where the relative path goes. So for example, let's say item, right? Let's leave it for now like that, item and slash. And then you say that views dot menu item detail, so put that in here, menu item detail as view. So what I'm trying to go to here is that in views we had two classes, one class that handles the views for the home page, this here, and now we had another view for handling the individual pages, this one here, right? So I'm specifying that in here and give it a name, for example, let's say item, or perhaps another name like menu item to distinguish it from this name, so not to confuse you. This is the URL name and this is the URL subdirectory, right? Now this URL name should be given in here in index.html, menu item. So that means when the user clicks in seafood pasta or any of these URLs, they will be taken to the URL that has this name, menu item. That URL is this here. So, which means sort of your domain name.com/item. So the user will be taken to this page. In our case, this is something like 127.0.0 and the port name and so on. So let's see how that goes. Let's refresh this. Click on seafood pasta. Actually, we should have clicked to one of the unavailable items because I implemented this for those with status 0, so for unavailable items, because the available items still have the example.com URL attached to them. So let's try Greek salad here. Yeah, so there we go. We have an error. It says that this should be called with either an object pk, it's a primary key, or a slug. So in other words, this URL here should be more dynamic. To make it more dynamic, we can add like this syntax int, which means an integer, pk. So we will expect an integer from the primary key of the database. So we have the table with data, right? Each of them has a primary key attached to them, and so let's see what's gonna happen if we have this. So that's like the syntax of Django to handle dynamic URLs when you have multiple elements. So let's go back. Let's click on Greek salad. We've got an error. It says page not found. We can see that the requested URL was this, so /item/. So that means in index.html we still have to add something, and that is row.pk. So row is the variable here which is iterating over the rows of the table, and pk is one of the fields of the table which holds the primary key of that row. So with that, we can go back to the home page, refresh, click on Greek salad, and there we go, a menu item. So we do see a page now. Again, the way it worked is by adding this in index.html, by adding this line in urls.py, And that's about it. So in two places you have to modify the URLs, index.html and urls.py. You can do the same for the other ones as well. So here inside the quotes you want to paste that expression. So that will implement the same for, let's make a refresh here, for the other available items such as seafood pasta. Now we see menu item here. So where does this come from? Well, that comes from the views here, from this view. This is returning this HTML document. So it is that document which we're seeing here, and that is under templates, which is here, menu item detail.html. So you see, we see this menu item. That's the content inside the body tags. So that's the visible content that we see in here. We can improve that. So instead of saying menu item, we can say display here item.meal, for example. Refresh this page and we see seafood pasta. So for each link you click, you see the name of that. Similarly, you can add here perhaps p tags, and inside the p tags again you include a variable such as item.description. So as you can see, this page, menu item detail.html, has access to the item variable because item is the name of the model, and we have declared the model as a variable in this class. So this class is sending that name to this HTML document. That's why we have access to that name in here. So if you refresh here, you see that as well. And let's add the price as well. I'm duplicating that and saying price here. Refresh, we see the price as well. And we still have to include price in the home page in here. And we still have to include a navigation menu here on top and also add styling. Let's do all that in the next videos. See you there. Hey, welcome back. In this video, we will add a navigation menu here on top and then apply Bootstrap to our website so it looks visually appealing. Let's start with the navigation menu. As you know from the previous Django apps, to add a navigation menu, you need to create a base template. Instead of creating that from scratch, I'm just going to give you the finished version of the template. You can download it from the lecture resources. It's called base.html. So please copy that file and paste it inside templates. So I copied base.html and I'll paste it in here. Base.html. So that's the file. This file contains a navigation menu which starts in the nav tags and it ends in here. So that's the navigation menu, and you'll see how it looks like on the front end in just a bit. But basically it has two links. So this one here, the home and the about links. Now, these two lines here, as I've explained before in the previous Django apps, these lines here are going to be replaced dynamically by Django with the current page being rendered, which could be index.html or menu item detail.html. So in order to link that base.html with index.html, you need to go to index.html and delete that part. So delete the body tags and everything above that. Also these closing body and HTML tags, delete them as well. And here on top you want to use Jinja syntax with that symbol. and say extend single quotes base.html. And then after that, you want to say the same syntax basically, and you say block content, and at the end here, again, the same syntax, and you say end block one word content. So you see block content, end block content, all these here, they will be inserted into here, into this area here. So we remove the head tags because we have them in the base.html. So base.html is being merged with index.html. And we'll do the same with menu item detail.html. So copy those two lines, the Jinja 2 code, go to menu item HTML, delete the body tags and everything above it, paste those two lines, delete the closing body and HTML tags as well, and you want to paste there this line, end block content, and that's it. Now if you go to refresh the home page, this one here, we're gonna see home and about. Now both home and the about links, they link to, you can see that in base.html, they both link to the home URL. So home is the name of the URL in urls.py. So that's the URL. So when the user clicks home or about, then this view will be triggered, and that view will render index.html. So both these items, they take you to the home page. So if you want to change any of that, so if you want to change the about link to something else, you'll need to work on the base.html. So you want to change that. So that's the about link. You want to change home to another name, and then you want to add a URL in here, in this list, in the URL patterns. Add URL giving a name which corresponds to that name, right? And of course, for that new URL, you want to link it to a view, which can be another view you may want to create here for the about page. That view could look something like this, perhaps, like this here. And then you want to create an HTML template here as well, similar to menu item detail. Perhaps you want to just write some text. You don't need to add variables or so. But that's the idea if you want to add more pages. So that's where we are right now. Next is we want to add some styling to these elements as well. So let's do that in index.html. So that's the home page. The first thing I want to do is I want to apply div tags. So all that up to here will go inside div tags, and that will contain class container. So that's a Bootstrap class, because now we have Bootstrap, we have applied Bootstrap here, and we did that in base.html. So if you see inside the head tags, we have a link to Bootstrap, this one in here. So these links take you to a file, a CSS file, being stored somewhere remotely, and that file contains CSS code. So now we're using the CSS classes such as the container class here, which will apply like some styling to all the elements. You can see it already if we refresh. So it applies some margin here between the border and the items, right? So it's looking better already. And then for the items here, I think a UL tag would be appropriate here, followed by LI tags, so list tags. So you'd put the UL tags in here and close it just before the closing div, like that, and then indent everything, and this will have a class as list minus group list group flush. You can Google these classes if you're curious what exactly they do. So these are all Bootstrap classes. I would apply a class of pt-5 for this. That defines the padding on top of the meals, the meal names. So that's meal.1. And then output each of these meals inside li tags. So li, open it here, and you want to close it above the description here, undent it with Shift Tab. And I'll do the same for the description in here. So I'll do li, open it and close it here, unindent. So the meal name and the description are inside L1 tags. And now each of these L1 tags is going to have a particular class, a Bootstrap class, such as list, group, item, d-flex, justify, content, between the items, between the list items, align minus items, center, without a border, so border 0, and padding bottom 0 as well. And for the descriptions, this will be less styling, so that would be list minus group minus item pt0. And then we have to do the same for the items under else. So put that here, L1, somewhere here, and you want to close it in here, right? You want to copy the other one for the description in here, unindent it somewhere here, and close it in here. So it's the same as this, that's the same as this one here. You're gonna find this attached as well in the lecture resources. Let's see how it looks for now. So yeah, it's looking better. There's one last thing we need to add, and that's the price. Let's add it somewhere in here. To add the price, you can add, after the A tags, you can add the span tags. Open and close them. Give a class of badge. You'll see what badge looks like. BG primary, that's the color, that defines the color of the badge, and rounded pill, that's like the style. So inside these span tags, so in between that and between this, in here you want to say m row.price. So we extract the price from the row variable. Let's refresh. So there goes the price for the items with a strike through format. And let's do the same. Let's copy that span and paste it under the A tag in here. Unindent with Shift Tab, refresh, and we see all the prices now. Lastly, if you click on seafood pasta, you'll not see any styling, so let's apply some styling on the individual pages as well, inside menu item detail. You can do whatever you like here, but I'll just show you the way. So basically all you have to do is include the div tags there and here, so open and close them, indent these there, put the class container, and then you can add more classes here as you like pt5 for example. So if you refresh now this page, this is gonna look a bit different. So that's about it. I think that's our completed app. You go to home page and yeah, that's the menu. So there was a lot of elements about Django that you were able to learn in this So I hope this is useful for you. I know that this app contains a lot of elements, a lot of skills that you really needed to know about Django apps. So you're gonna be reusing these elements with most of your Django apps, most of the Django apps that you'll build in your work, in your career. So thanks a lot for following this, and yeah, let's do some more apps. See you in the next ones.